Okay, today on the bench, it's probably pretty obvious. It's the President Andy USA, which is a 12 and 24 volt, so it's multi-voltage radio. This radio was provided free of charge from President. Only thing they asked was, do a review on it. I did one on the President McKinley for them, pointing out a few little minor faults with that thing, one being the Roger beep. And I said, I'd give this one a try, because I really like the, actually, I like that radio so much, it's still on the bench. It's a bench radio. But, this one's a little small AM-only radio. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to give it a review, so here we go. So, now, one thing I like to point out with President is their warranty policy, right on the box. What they call their 2+3 year warranty. So the radio alone, you buy just the radio, you get a 2-year warranty. I think that's a year better than anybody else, if I'm not mistaken. I think everybody else pretty much standard in the industry is a 1-year warranty. But if you, in addition, so you're getting an extra year there. But if you also buy a President antenna at the same time you buy one of their radios, you get an additional 3-year warranty on the radio. So a total of 5 years. That's just unheard of in CB radios. Yeah, so that's I think that's fantastic. I actually want to get some of the President antennas and try them out. There's a few of them that are kind of interesting, low profile ones I'd like to try. So, I may do some review. I may end up just buying those and reviewing and see how I like them. But, so yeah, check into that. Now, this does have a multicolor display. The one thing that I absolutely loved on the President McKinley was the ASC, or the automatic squelch control, and this radio has that. Another thing this radio has is the weather channel. So that's another nice thing. In a very compact radio, it does have the weather channel. So, just has the normal hoo-ha in the box. Radio, the manual, all the normal bits and pieces and whatnot that you'd expect to get with any radio. So just get her out here. Now, as with most radios like this one is a microprocessor controlled radio. So to get into a lot of the, I don't want to call it advanced features, because it is a fairly basic radio, but to very limited number of controls. So 2 rotary knobs and 4 push buttons. That's it. So yeah, it's very important. Make sure you have the owner's manual, because you're going to have a hard time trying to find how to use a lot of the features of the radio if you don't have the user's manual. So let's get this critter powered up. Okay, turn on the power supply, that might help. And yes, this does have the power cord attached to it permanently. Oh, get in the clip there, little thing. So yeah, there's no plug-in. This is a solidly mounted cord. I need something to jack up the front of the radio. Get out some bench cookies here. Like a little jack stand. And we'll get a correct connector. I knew there was some skip rolling in earlier. I haven't had a radio on in a few hours. I'm not sure if there's anything coming in right now. Get the camera down here. Yeah, and this camera just does not like bright radios, for starters. Not so much radios, even my test equipment. I always have trouble videoing the displays because it just gets blinded. It's not that blinding, and even the color, it's not I'm looking in the viewfinder and the camera. What I'm seeing in the camera is not what I'm seeing in person right here. This is the green. In my viewfinder, it almost looks blue. It's not. It's very, very green. So yeah, the color representation of this camera, it's like I say, it's kind of blinding it. Let's see if, it might help if I had that antenna on this radio. there's the ASC. And the way the ASC works is if you turn the squelch control down the whole way, it turns on the ASC, and if you come up just a little bit, you'll see the ASC logo disappear, just like on the President McKinley. But like I said, I really like that feature. Has a normal CB PA switch, so you can, does have a PA speaker jack on the back. It's also your noise blanker button. Emergency, so you hit that, and that's actually something. Now, I've actually had this radio out of the box, put it in it, and I played with it, and I wanted to do the video, but I didn't have time that day. I've actually changed, and that's something, that feature right there. When I hit the emergency button, it just went back to the first channel, but when I hit the emergency button, and you can see it's, no, actually, you can barely see it. Like I say, oh man, this camera has a hard time with these bright displays. It actually says EMG right there. You can just barely make it out. That's actually what I have the emergency channel programmed to in this radio. I think that's fantastic. The one thing I hate about most radios is when you hit emergency, what's it take you to? Channel 9. Honestly, I haven't heard an emergency call on Channel 9. Yeah, I don't know. When I was a kid, maybe? Everybody has a cell phone nowadays. Nobody uses Channel 9. I still like the having the emergency button, but the problem is it's on a channel that nobody uses. So that's kind of like a favorite. I kind of think of it as a favorites channel on this radio because you can change it in programming. You can change that emergency button to put the radio on any channel you want. That's great. So actually, I need to look at the manual to see how to get into all these functions again. Because like I say, I have just played with it really quick the other day. Microphone is basically just like the one with the McKinley. Only difference is it does not have channel buttons on top of it. So one advantage there is this uses a standard 4-pin microphone jack. So it does not have more pins like on the McKinley. So yeah, just standard 4-pin mic plug. So for people that want to use an aftermarket microphone, this radio is very easy to use, and if you would so desire, just plug in any an A-static or whatever microphone you'd want to. Now honestly, I think these microphones actually sound pretty good. The microphone cartridges they have in these sound good. I know the one on the McKinley, people say they sound good. Now, can you get better? Of course. Any microphone that comes stock with any radio, it's not like this is a Heil. So, don't get me wrong. But for a stock microphone, I think these are actually very good sounding as a stock microphone. Just flip into the manual here. Get to the... Okay. And we'll cover some of the things. So yeah, this, now it's not doing it right now, because that's another thing I had turned off when I first played with this, because it's something that I can't stand. Let's see, is the key beep, if the key beep function is activated, yeah. Let's see, key beep. Oh, we're going to change the tone control, activate the button. Yeah, to turn, let's see, turn off the power. Yeah, so turn on the power while pressing the down key. And now, anytime you press a button, there's a sound, which I just don't like key beeps, but some people do. So, you can turn that on and off. Just hold the down button, turn the radio on, see BP on the screen. Now that annoying beep, beep, beep is gone every time you press a button. It's nice that you can turn that off. You can see how I was changing the channels. This does not have a channel selector switch. It uses the up-down buttons. So yeah, up, down, pretty straightforward there. The weather channel, to activate the weather channel, let's see, press and hold, down key until, no. I gotta activate the weather mode on page 8. I'm actually looking at the manual right here, just slightly off screen. Non-emergency, not appear on the screen. Long press the F key and not that one. I think I just screwed up. Get the F and up. Yeah, okay, and there's the weather channels. So, and then if you hit the emergency button, that knocks it out of out of the weather channel. So, you know, for the emergency, for the weather channels. Now, this does have the weather alert. Actually, let me turn on a communications test set so you can actually hear that. This has, and once I get it set up, I'll tell you turn your volume down if you're wearing headphones, because yeah, it is a loud and very obnoxiously annoying alert tone, which is what you want. If there's a weather alert, you want it to blow you out of your seat and let you know, hey, hurricane coming, be careful, or a tornado, take cover now. So what you do is when you have your weather channel turned on, so press the emergency F key, you get the F right there, hit the up button. I did that wrong. Oh, that's because I was on. Oh, it's because I was on my emergency channel. Hit the up button. So whatever channel you select as the weather channel, that is the channel that it will be monitoring for weather alerts. So if I now go back to CB, I gotta wait for the communications test set to fire up there. What will happen is if the National Weather Service sends out an emergency alert, when you're in CB, it'll still activate the weather radio. It sends a continuous 1050 hertz audio tone AM modulation, or actually FM modulation, because that's what the weather channel is, an FM signal. It'll activate the emergency alert on the radio, and it'll switch over from a CB back over to a weather radio. It'll play that alert tone, and then it'll, you know, if they're broadcasting a message, you'd then hear your audio message. So that's a nice feature. So I'm going to set up my communications test set here. Let's see, frequency, channel 1 is what? 162.4. 162.4 megahertz. Modulation, FM. I'm setting up my communications test set. And frequency. Okay. So let me get the camera up here. I need to get in and pull out the connector here. So I'm going to suggest you turn down your volume if you have headphones on. Get this set up over here. And I do have that on the right channel, don't I? Actually, the first thing I need to check is make sure I'm actually... No. Darn it, I was on channel 19 again, or 17. Yeah, I'm not on the right channel frequency. 162.4, wasn't it? Oh, that's right. The frequency number 1 is actually channel number 2. Okay, so let me turn the RF generator off. So I have it on channel 2, and I have the alert turned on. So now I'm going to go back to a CB radio, so it's on channel 20, and now it's going to be loud. So turn your volume down. I'm going to turn the signal generator back on, and the signal generator is going to be putting in a 162.4 megahertz frequency that's FM modulated with that 1050 hertz tone, and that will activate the weather alert tones in this radio, which are loud. And then you can actually hear the tone then. But yeah, so that's the alert. And if I turn the signal generator off, now go back to CB, and I'm going to turn it back on one more time. So that is the... If that doesn't wake you up, I don't know what will. And the weather radio is very sensitive in this. Did my normal little test like I'd normally do. Not even using a CV antenna, just using a off a piece of test equipment. A little tiny telescopic antenna. I'll stick this in the back of the radio. So that's what's being used for the weather radio. And in this room, it's very shielded because I have so much test equipment and so many parts cabinets in here that are metal. I'm kind of sitting in an RF shielding cage almost.
Which occurred in 1970 and the record low today and tonight. No hazardous. Sunrise tomorrow is at 7:11 a.m.
And that's what I expect to get here is 2 channels. Now there is a 3rd channel. See, I'm not sure if the squelch, I don't think the squelch works on the weather. No, that's automatically handled by the micro. There's a 3rd channel, and that a lot of times just depends on atmospheric conditions. I can kind of almost barely make out on some radios. But yeah, the two weather channels, there's one in Maryland and one in Pennsylvania is what those 2 you just heard, I pick up, and yeah, crystal clear, sounds good. So other features of the radio, so you've seen how the weather alert and heard the blow you out of your chair feature. This does have scan, so when you're in, go back to CB, when you're in CB, you just hold the button in one direction. Actually, you got to hold it. So, okay, let's just start over. So if you're on, let's say, channel 32, and you want to scan, what you do is just push and hold either the up or down button, but just hold that button in until it gets back to 32, and then once it gets, so basically once it goes through 40 channels, as long as you're still holding that button, it kicks it over into the scan mode, displays SC on there, and you can see it's now scanning the 40 channels. And you can change the direction, not that I think it really matters, but it's scanned, it will scan up like it's doing, or if you push the down button, you can see it's counting down now. So, that's nifty little feature. Like I said, I don't think that really makes much of a difference. Like I say, the AESC have already described that. I really like that feature. The AESC works really, really well. And if you want to do manual squelch, you just turn it up until that little AESC logo disappears there, and then this just operates as a normal squelch control. Let's see, the Roger beep. Yes, this does have a Roger beep. Actually, let's take it out of scan. Maybe sounds like, yeah, I know how to turn on. So yes, press the up key while powering on, and you can see it says Roger beep, and you probably just barely see the little music logo right there. That indicates that the Roger beep is turned on. So Roger beep off. If I want the Roger beep on, I just hold the up key, turn the radio on, and you see it says Roger beep on, and then a little logo appears there. And I'll just actually turn on another radio. And key the microphone. Make sure I'm on a dummy load here. Turn the volume up some. So it has that brrp, brrp, which is kind of a nice fast burst, which I like. That's one thing I can't stand is those really slow, long Roger beeps. So yeah, that's, like I say, easy to, and I'll just turn that back off. Roger beep off. Yeah, key beep, already showed you how to do that. This does have a timeout timer. Now that's kind of nice. What the timeout timer does is once you push the push to talk button, countdown clock starts. If the radio has been keyed for more than 5 minutes, it'll actually take it out of transmit. And that's meant to protect the radio and people's sanity. Because it does happen occasionally. Somebody will be driving down a road and something bumps into their push-to-talk button, or even if you're using it as a base station, but something bumps into the push-to-talk button and the radio's keyed and you don't even realize it. And you can be driving around for 2 or 3 hours with your radio in transmit, blanking out the channel for that entire duration. So the timeout timer will kick it out of transmit. That also protects the, your amplifier stage. I actually had to do a repair on a radio one time where apparently the guy got out of his dump truck at night, and he's just one of those guys that just never turns the radios off. He just leaves his radios on 24 hours a day. big truck, Caterpillar engine. They've got three cranking batteries at a minimum. A lot of times big trucks will also have a fourth battery. So yeah, he's not worried about it killing the battery, but left his radios always on. But apparently when he got out of his truck at the end of the night, a clipboard slipped over and pushed his push to talk button, and his radio was on all night. He came back in the next morning, went to use the radio, saw it was keyed. Yep, the finals were burned out in the radio. So it also helps to protect the radio as well. This does have Talkback. You can turn the Talkback on, and you can change the Talkback level on this. So let's see, press and hold the PTT switch, short press the F key. So yeah, if you can see it there, there, you can just, it almost makes it out. And this camera, I've got to get another camera. I actually have to for the electronics course I'm going to be publishing. But yeah, this camera just hates these LCD displays. Yeah, it says Talkback there. You have to take my word for it. It almost showed it there for a second. Ah, there you go. There you can see it says Talkback. And if I talk into the microphone, I can hear at a very low level. And to change the level, just use the up-down keys. So I can turn the Talkback up higher, or I can turn the Talkback level down just by pushing the key on the radio here. And even at full volume, it's not blowing you out of your seat, and it's not creating feedback into the microphone. That's one of the biggest problems I have with Talkback. Usually, when you turn Talkback on, it feeds back into the microphone. Even at maximum volume, it's not enough to feed back. And I guess the last thing is what the color display. I don't even remember how in the heck you changed that. Color. Where was that? Somewhere I must have skipped over that. Roger beep functions. Color. Turn on the power while pressing the emergency button. And CVPA. So yeah, you push both of these buttons in, turn the radio on, and then you can change the color. So that's blue. It actually looks very, very light blue in camera. It's actually a very dark blue. I guess that's supposed to be cyan. Actually, that color looks fairly accurate in my camera. That's yellow. That does not look accurate in the camera. It's actually a lot yellower than what it looks in the camera. Purple, yeah, camera again. It actually looks a lot deeper purple. Clear or white, that actually is a fair representation in the camera. Red, yep, that looks about right in the camera. And green. Actually, it looks like that would be a good one to... that's the one I should have been using for the camera. My camera seems to like that blue. And then once you set it, long press the F key, and that does show up in this camera a little bit better. So you can see a lot of stuff. I have the alert turned on, the ASC, AM. Now it's got to be AM. I don't know why they put that on here. It's only an AM radio. Now they might be using this display. I don't know. I'd almost have to look at some of the other radios they offer, because they have a lot of radios that they sell. You know, the export or the overseas radios that are AM, FM radios. They possibly use this in one of those radios. So that's why they're just, they had the AM, so they just illuminated it. You know, it's there, why not use it? So I think that's all for the functional show on the radio. I'm going to pause the camera now, and I'm going to come back, and we're going to actually tear into the main thing. What I care about with radios is build quality and what it's like on the inside. You know, from the outside, like I say, it's a very small radio. I can lay my hand on there. You know, you can see it's finger, you know, from the edge of my hand to my thumb width-wise. This does have a heatsink, which we'll get into that when I tear it apart. But yeah, if I put my finger at the back of the heatsink, yeah, my palm falls off the radio. So it's very small, compact radio. This would be a great radio for something like in Jeeps, or actually modern cars. I mean, cars are getting so small now, you have very limited room to install radios nowadays. So footprint-wise, this is just a hair over 5 inches. From the back of the heatsink, right about there, to the front of the knobs, you're looking at about 7 3/8, I'd say. Yeah, about 7 3/8 of an inch. And thickness is just a little bit over 1 3/4 inches. So very compact radio. So let me get the power removed. I'll get the screws taken out, and last thing is I'll show you the back of the radio. Like I say, it does have PA, speaker jack, the power cord's permanently attached, of course your connector, and then the heatsink. So let me get her torn apart, and I'll start the video back up. Okay, so here we are inside. You can see very clean build. Pretty much like everything President's producing now. Surface mount boards, the only through-hole components you're going to have, mainly going to be electrolytic capacitors and large inductors, crystals, a few things like that. But yeah, everything else is surface mount, so it keeps, they can do a lot more with a lot less space. That's one of the big advantages of surface mount. Honestly, surface mount's also usually a lot more reliable. Something I do on almost a daily basis is resoldering circuit boards that very frequently have bad solder connections. That's something you just don't have. It's surface mount, as long as it was properly soldered. Now, nothing is bulletproof, or will last forever. But surface mount is a lot more durable when it comes to things like vibration, radios bouncing, especially in a mobile application. Radio bouncing up and down the road in a vehicle, compared to through-hole components. Very common to see bad solder connections on through-hole components. Not really on stuff like this. So that just makes radios like this a lot more durable. Now, one thing you'll probably notice is there's a lot of things missing in here. And those things that are missing are adjustments. Exactly. Where are the adjustments in this radio? Well, there are 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. There's 3 trimmer resistors. That's all there is, and there ain't no more. So if you're a screwdriver, you like going in and screwdriver in a radio, you're not going to be screwdriver in this radio. Now, that's actually a good thing. Excuse me. They've gotten to the point in building radios like this, and they're starting to change over to radios with this style of build. They're doing away with a lot of actually in the case of this radio, with all of the adjustable transformers and coils. So the little metal cans you used to see in a radio that had a little adjustable ferrite core in them. They're just gone. The only thing that's in here now are fixed inductors. So that's what these little black specks, like right there's 3 of them in a row. Okay, and just by looking at the radio, it's kind of clear to see they're going to be in your RF amplifier stage most likely. But they can do with fixed inductors what you would normally use a tunable transformer for. Advantages of using a fixed inductor is, for starters, they're just a lot more temperature stable. Where your old tunable transformers, it's a big metal can, there's a lot of coil in there, thermal expansion and contraction. You can get temperature variance that can actually throw things off, frequency stability, especially in oscillator circuits. The fixed inductors are just a lot more stable over a broad temperature range. They cost less. Hey, that's a big advantage from the manufacturer's standpoint, is they cost a lot less than buying something with a ferrite core in it, because ferrite is expensive. It's a lot more reliable. If it's not adjustable, there's no ferrite core for a golden screwdriver to break, and then somebody like me has to repair by changing the blasted things. You're not screwdrivering that. There's a little coil of wire in that. It's embedded in a block of plastic, basically. So yeah, it is what it is, and it can't be changed. Now a lot of people say, yeah, but then that limits the range of a radio. So thinking of now, not so much with a radio like this, but radios for people that like to do frequency expansions. Now Mark has actually played with that. So the expansion board he has for like the Uniden 980. Now the original 980 and the new version Uniden Bearcat 980 are 2 different style of boards. The newest version of the 980 is set up just like this radio, all fixed inductors. He actually found that radio broadbands really, really far. It's not in the nature of the coil so much that limits how wide the radio broadband. It's just how it's set up the entire circuit. The radio with the fixed inductors actually has the capability of broadbanding over a very large range. So, don't think that's going to limit, expansion on radio by manufacturers using fixed inductors, that's going to limit your range on how broadband you can get a radio. You can get a radio with fixed inductors that's very broadband. Now, from a maintenance standpoint, the only things that are normally going to go wrong in a radio like this over a long period of time, which any radio, actually not just radio, anything electronic, electrolytic capacitors, well, there's not even a lot of those in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and if I remember right, looking at the service manual, I think there's 2 more in the shield can here, and this is just part of your voltage regulation filtering circuit. So yeah, what, 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So yeah, there's 9 aluminum electrolytic capacitors, and I think that's actually it for electrolytics, isn't it? No. There is one, the little yellow speck right there, that'll be a tantalum capacitor. But yeah, you won't ever have to worry about changing that. So yeah, I mean, even from the durability standpoint of aluminum electrolytics, a lot less of them in this radio. So, 30 years from now, if somebody wants to restore this thing, 9 capacitors versus, 35, 40, 50, 60 caps like in some other radios. Yeah, there's only a couple of them in here. Like I say, very clean design, bottom of the board, absolutely no bodge parts on here. One thing I was extremely happy to see is, from my standpoint, repairing radios, look at all the test points. Clearly labeled on the bottom of the board. So you don't, because that's one thing from a service standpoint, absolutely drives me nuts is, you'll look at a service manual and it'll tell you when you're doing a transceiver alignment or you're trying to troubleshoot something, it'll show you on a schematic TP12, let's say, or, TP12 is a good example. Actually, I think that one I just saw is, right there. I don't even need to look at the board layout diagram to find out where they are. I just look at the schematic. Okay, I should see a signal at TP12. Shoot, in a matter of just a couple seconds, I can scan the entire bottom side of this board and boink, I can find it. There it is. Makes my life easier. Saves me time. Time savings for me means savings for the customer. Yeah, just nice build quality. The heatsink. Now, I'm going to assume they needed that. I can't see him putting the heatsink on there if it didn't have to have it. I mean, there's good design, and then there's just basically like mission critical parts. I'm going to call that like mission critical kind of. I don't think they would have stuck it on there if this radio, if it didn't get hot. But honestly, I actually tried this little thing, turned the power up on it a little bit, and still clean, because actually 2 of those adjustments down there are your AM power, so your carrier power and your modulation. And you can turn the carrier up on this, at least this specific radio right here. I had it turned up to like 5.5 watts. Could still get 100% modulation. Now, actually, the final in this is a flashlight here and a look. Yeah, it's a FQP13N10. So that's a MOSFET, and it can handle actually a little bit more power than that. The problem is in any radio, doesn't matter how huge you make that final, it's how much audio you can get. You can have a huge carrier. If you don't have enough audio to modulate that huge carrier, yeah, then it's going to sound horrible, and it's just not going to, well, you'll have a, you could set the carrier, let's say, now you can't in this radio, but let's say you could set the carrier at 10 watts. Well, if you set the carrier at 10 watts, well, and the maximum modulation this thing can support, let's say 5.5 watts, well, at 10 watts, you may only be getting 50 to 60% modulation. So, yeah, there's a limitation there. Yeah, like I say, I was able to turn it up in this one. I think it was around 5.25, 5.5 watts. Still had 100% modulation. Still looked great on a scope. Spectrum analyzer, no harmonic energies. Very clean and undistorted. So, yeah, good power. So it's nice to see a heatsink on there. Like I say, it's a small radio, so it doesn't have a lot of mass. There's not a lot of exposed metal on the back of this thing to dissipate heat. I think a lesser radio company might not have put that on there, but they did. And it's not a cheap one either. I mean, you see, that's a nice beefy heatsink. So, yeah, thumbs up on them for doing that. As you would expect, microprocessor controlled. So there's your microprocessor. Does have, here's basically back here is your separate circuit for the weather radio, display driver down there, controls. The only thing really that connects the main board to the display board and all your controls is there's a 2-wire connector here and a ribbon cable, and that's it. There's no other connections down here, so just a ribbon cable, and that makes servicing it very easy. And just take off 4 screws, 1 cable, 1 plug, and you've got it separated. So, servicing very easy. So yeah, I like it. I think that's a nice little setup. Should be, like I say, I'm going to say very durable radio. And actually, speaking of durability, kind of brings up something I've been thinking about. I'm doing warranty repair work for President. Well, I have to tell you the truth. You know how many warranty repair jobs I've had so far? It's not 0, but I have done some warranty repairs for President. 1. That's it. Since I've been doing warranty repairs for him, I've had 1 warranty repair come in. You know what was wrong? It wasn't the radio itself. It was actually the fuse. It was a radio that came from, oh God, where was that? Costa Rica? Yeah, I think it was Costa Rica. What? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Costa Rica. Anyhow, it came in, or no, Puerto Rico. What the hell am I saying? Costa Rica. Puerto Rico. I'll get it out. Yeah, it came in from Costa Rica, and apparently the radio would not turn on. No response to any controls, no display, no lights, no nothing. It just dead. And they said the fuse is okay, and so I'd get the radio in. Now the radio that came in was a what was that? President Lincoln 2 Plus. So it actually has a plug-in power cord. So now normally I just have power cords here at the bench all the time. They're always hooked up, so I'm not using I don't need the customer's power cord. So I grabbed one of my cords, it's always plugged in, plugged the radio in, turned it on, radio turned on just fine. I couldn't see any problems. It transmitted, it received, didn't see any problems. I was kind of like, well, I wonder if it's just an intermittent connection in the fuse holder. So being a warranty repair, it had been sent back in with all of the accessories in the factory box. So, I popped the fuse holder open, take the fuse out, look at it. I was like, yeah, the fuse is fine. Check, look down into the connections in the fuse holder here to, check and make sure that the, ends were properly crimped on, give them the pull test. Yeah, everything looked fine. Put the fuse back in the fuse holder, hooked it up to the power line, hooked it up to the radio, turned the radio on, nothing. Grabbed my power cord, plugged it in, radio worked fine. Plugged the customer's power cord back in, nothing. Like, what the heck's going on here? So I checked the fuse again, but I looked at it really close. It's a fairly small filament, so it's hard to see in there, but I was like, well, the fuse looks fine, and then I clipped onto it with an ohm meter. It was over 3,000 ohms of resistance. What had actually happened was the actual filament wire. So, basically you can think of a fuse kind of like a light bulb, it's a little glass package here with a piece of wire that runs in between it. The larger the gauge wire that is, the higher the current rating of the fuse. But yeah, radios like this is going to be a fairly thin wire, but it had just become disconnected from the one end cap. So it was still making contact. Like I say, it was like 3,000 ohms. So, it was just kind of barely touching the inside metal plate. That's all it was, bad fuse. So, yeah, since I've been doing warranty repairs for President, the only repair that I actually had was to install a new fuse in a fuse holder. And it's a shame the guy had to send a radio the whole way here from Puerto Rico when all he needed was a fuse. But, yeah, it is what it is. But, something that tells me the radio, they're good quality. If they're not having problems, I'm not getting floods of radios in here for bad solder connections. I'm not getting boatloads of radios in here for receiver problems, transmit power problems, relays going bad, or whatever else might be. I'm just not seeing any of that. So that tells me right there that they're doing something right. So I think after several decades of fine tuning and refining radios, I think they're really they've really got their game together, I guess you could say, and a lot of the problems of the past are really starting to disappear. So my overall opinion of this little radio, I think it's perfect. If you got a small vehicle, this is a great radio. The only thing I would probably suggest to President in future radios, at some point in the future, or if they do a revision of this radio. I did not see in the manual, and I can't say I found it, that the display intensity is adjustable. The brightness, I might suggest adding that, because I can see some people maybe requesting that. It is a fairly large display, and depending what color you have for your display background color, at nighttime, that could get really bright inside of a vehicle, especially depending where somebody has this thing mounted. So you might think about making a adjustable intensity for the display. Other than that, I mean, the functionality, honestly, on any radio like this is going to be what I'd consider clunky. Because it's so small, you can only put so many buttons and controls on it. So you're going to be forced to need to, hold 2 buttons and turn the radio on to, turn on or turn off features and stuff like that. That's just kind of the nature of the beast when you have something that this is this small. You need buttons to be able to do multiple things. So, that button isn't just channel up. It's used with other functions because it's microprocessor controlled. That's, like I say, that's just kind of the nature of the beast. If this was a larger physical size radio, yeah, it could have had separate buttons for every function. But, yeah, I think I like the big display. So, I mean, shoot, as big as the display and the digits are on this, shoot, somebody sitting in the back seat of your car can read what channel you're on. So, yeah, it's a nice big, you can just glance down at your radio. You don't have to squint and try and focus on it. Yeah, it's very, like I said, in this camera here, it hates my oscilloscopes, my spectrum analyzers, communications test sets. I just always have a hard time getting the camera to focus on stuff because the displays just blind this camera. It's not really good for stuff like that. That's why I actually need to order a couple cameras. I'm going to start the electronics course. So in the future, I shouldn't have that problem. But yeah, overall, I'm going to say it's a nice little radio. So if you're looking for a small, compact radio, I think the President Andy USA would be a perfect fit. So there you go. There's my 2 cents. I'm trying to think if there's something else I wanted to mention. Pretty much all the President radios. You may notice you turn the radio on, you don't even have to transmit, just in a half hour or an hour. If you walk up and put your hand on any of the radios, you're going to notice they're warm. They're going to be especially warm on this side, so if the radio is right side up, then it depends on the radio. But most of them, when the radio is facing up, this side is going to be rather warm. There's not anything wrong with your radio. That's to be expected. They have all of basically your voltage regulation circuit and your audio circuit, your audio amplifier, are heat synced to this side of the chassis, so they're going to get warm. They're using the chassis, the little bracket here holds them in. You can actually see there's some additional aluminum plate down in here as a heat sink, and then the chassis is used as a heat sink. So yeah, one side of the radio is going to get hot. The other side, as you can see, there's nothing mounted to it. So if you're not transmitting, yeah, it's going to be fairly cool. So that's to be expected, and they don't run hot. It just is. It's warm to the touch. You stick your fingers on there for a couple seconds. You go, yeah, it's kind of like lukewarm water. It'd kind of be what I'd say is a comparison. So yeah, it's not by any stretch of the imagination does it get hot. But I just like to let people be aware that yeah, if you notice the side of your radio is warm, there's nothing wrong with it. A lot of radios, you'll notice that it's an electronic device. Anytime you turn it on, it's using power. Especially microprocessor controlled radios are going to be using even more power, because not only are they powering circuits like the receiver circuitry, oscillator circuits, you're also powering things like displays, display drivers, microprocessors. Anytime this radio is turned on, so it's using a lot of power in a lot of other circuits. The weather radio, even when you're only using the CB portion, you've got the weather alert turned on. The weather radio section back here, it's active, so it's using power. All of these circuits get power from the voltage regulators. So those things are under load continuously. So yeah, just expect modern radios. You find a warm spot, it's not like your radio is going to burst into flames. It's warm for a reason. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's taking a larger voltage and stepping it down to whatever's needed for specific circuits in a radio, be it 8 volt. the 8-volt rail or a 5-volt or even 3-volt rails inside of a radio. So to be expected. But yep, there you go. There's my opinion on the President Andy. I like it. Like I said, anything I'd do is maybe consider doing adjustable backlight display intensity. That's about it. The Roger beep can be heard in this one, where the McKinley, originally when I did the review on that one, I'd said that the McKinley, excuse me, the Roger beep on that one, you can barely hear it on a receiving radio. I did not notice that problem with this one, so it seems to be fine in this. So there you go. You need a little small radio. I think that's a good candidate to take a look at the President. Like I say, don't forget to take a look at their antennas. That'll extend your warranty by 3 years if you get one at the same time you purchase the radio. I want to get a few of those to try out. Like I said, there's one of them I'm really interested in. It's a little short antenna. It actually sits back like kind of an aerodynamic style antenna. I actually want to get one of those and try one of those little things out just to see how well they perform. With a radio like this, I think that'd be a nice little combination. A little small antenna, very unassuming looking. So there you go. I hope this helps somebody out. Maybe help you make a decision on if you want one of these or not.